Hello everyone. In the last video, we have seen how the testing process will happen. So what is that we are going to do as part of our testing? And also after completing our system testing, we will be performing UAT. So you may not be directly performing UAT, but there will be business users. Those people will be doing this UAT testing. As part of it, they will be performing either alpha testing or beta testing. It depends on the agreement what we do with the vendor or the client, uh, between the agreement between the client and vendor. So they will be performing the type of testing. So just to make it very simple, in the testing process, what are we going to do? So first, in the testing phase, you are going to go through the requirement document, that is FRS document. You will go through and understand all the requirements. If there are any clarifications, those clarifications will be clarified by the business analyst. And once everything is done, you are going to do what? You are going to have, right? You will be writing the test plan document, and then you are going to write the test scenarios, and also you're going to write test cases, and review will happen in each phase. So once everything is done, you will get the sign off on the documents whatever you have provided. So when I say sign off means what? Approval. Once you're ready, you will wait for the build. So once you get the build from the development team, you are going to perform sanity testing. That means the initial check, and then you are going to perform the system testing. And finally, if there is any defect, you are going to do the retesting. And if there is any functionality which is impacting because of this defect, you may perform regression testing also. So whatever the defects you are getting, all the defects will be provided with the clear information to the developers, and then the developers will fix it, and then you will be retesting them, and this process will continue till all the defects are closed. That is how you will be performing your testing in the testing phase. That means once your software is ready, your application is built, then what is going to happen? You are going to deliver the software and then maintain the software for the agreement period. Let us say in your bidding. So bidding means what? The contract between the software company and the customer. So when the bidding happens, so let us say after building the application, after releasing the project, you will be giving 6 months warranty. When I say warranty, whatever the problem you get after you release the bill to the customer, any problem within the 6 months, you are going to fix them without any cost. Fix without any cost. So now what happens if the problem occurs after 6 months? Then they have to pay. They have to pay the money as per the service. So this is how the contract will happen. So similarly, you might already aware of what is warranty and guarantee. So when I say guarantee, let's say you purchase one item. Okay, you bought one item, assume that is some TV. So if there is a guarantee written for 1 year. When I say guarantee for 1 year means if something goes wrong with the TV, then directly they will replace the TV if there is a warranty for it, if there is a guarantee for it. But if it is warranty, they will just fix the problem and they will not replace the one with a new product. So that is how the guarantee and warranty works. So now what is going to happen in the software life cycle for the delivery and maintenance phase? After testing the software, you will be having the tested software. That means ready software, tested software or quality software to deploy into the customer's environment. When I say deployment, delivery and maintenance phase, you will be having deployment engineers. Those people will be performing the role, and anyhow your project manager also will be there. He will make sure that the deployment happens properly. Deployment means installation of the application in the customer's environment. So these people will deploy the software and then provide the necessary support to the customer. So in this case, you may get a question. We are talking about web application. So let's say we are asking them to build one web application. What is deployment for this application? So this is the application. If you type online.citibank.co.in, this is coming, right? Then what is that we need to do? What kind of deployment they need? So in that case, you need to understand, if whenever you are working on the software, you will not have this direct URL. What you will be having is, you will be working on your local host. So the URL may be something like this. When you are working in your local machines, and the URL, and this system will work only within the organization, whatever the server they are using. Let us say they are using some port number. If you don't understand this also, this URL will work only in the company's URL. That is how you can understand. Now to make it work for everybody, for example, I am accessing it from Hyderabad and somebody is accessing from some other country, and anywhere in the world, if they wanted to access, this application needs to be hosted hosting example. If I give hosting example website, if you take, you will understand it in a better way, how you will be hosting the application. So there will be, let us say, take this as an example. Now our Citibank application, our people wanted to access it. So what is that they are going to do? Just see website users. When I say website users, these users are like how I have opened the application. These are the customers. They will be using the internet, and through the internet there will be a web host, which is a web server, and then we will host all our files, our project files. That means whatever the things are required for your Citibank application, all the files for this particular project will be hosted into this particular place. So whenever you try to access it, it will go through the internet using a web server and then hit this, and then again the response will come back through the internet to the user's system. So that is how the system will work. So this deployment also, if they require, they will be doing the support. If at all it is a installation process, they'll just simply do the installation. For example, how you do your VLC media player or MS Office, all the softwares, how you install those things also one of the deployment process. If at all it is a application which needs to be installed on the supermarkets, like Vijeta supermarket billing system or any hospital management billing system, they need to configure certain things. So when I say configure, they need to maintain the database, they need to have the application installed. All those things will be taken care by the development team. So if you don't understand what is this development deployment and how they are hosting, you just try to understand in a simple manner whatever the required files are there for that particular project, that has to be taken care by the deployment team, and the customer should be able to go to the website. If it is a web application, he should be able to access it, and then he should be able to make use of it. This support they will be providing. This is one thing. Now other one, if it is a let us say billing software, if it is a billing software, then what you are going to do is, you will be installing that into the mission of that particular user, and there they will be able to open that application, whatever we are talking about, the billing software. Let's say this is one of the billing software example. Let me show you the screen how it will look like. So if you see that, you will understand how the billing screen will look like. See, so they will be having a dashboard and they will be maintaining, if at all they wanted to maintain. So if at all this software needs to be installed on their system, so this is like books thing. They're maintaining the books. If you are talking about some website which is talking about a customer billing invoice, see, this is the invoice. So that means if you go to any shop, there whatever the details they are entering, everything will be set up here. So for this setup also, they need to install the software. So let's say I'll be saying grocery billing software. So if I go here and see, you might have already seen how the system will access from the scanner code. So once they scan the item, then automatically the item will be listed out and the amount will be reflected. So these softwares also need some support from for the installation from the people. Once they install that, then automatically the entire amount will be calculated. So like that, see here, these are all some of the examples. So don't worry if you don't understand about the installations and all. First, you need to understand what is deployment. Deployment means they are just giving the required support to access this application and access the other application as well. So once that is done, they will be providing the required support according to the bidding, whatever the agreement they have done, so they will be providing it. So in all the cases, your project manager is responsible to maintain all these stakeholders, the members and the management and then client. So members are the employees who are working for the project, and management is the people who are the project manager reporting people, and then client side, that is the, if you take Citibank as an example, Citibank side people. So he has to maintain all the key stakeholders. Stakeholders means important uh, bodies who are participating in this project. So that is how the software development life cycle will deliver the software. So this is how you need to understand the software development life cycle. So now, if somebody asks you what is software development life cycle, so you can simply say that software development life cycle is a process to initiate a project using requirements and then analysis, design, coding, testing, delivery, and maintenance, and ensure that the product meets the customer requirements, and we need to ensure that it is tested as per the requirements as well. So if you are building that using these phases, so that we call it as software development lifecycle process. So you no need to go into the detailed discussion what we have done, but you must understand what is happening at each phase. So now once you understand all the phases and all the outcomes of these phases, now we need to understand where exactly testing is coming into picture. But most of the people, by looking at the phases, they'll say that after coding phase, testing will come. But if you look at very closely from the requirements phase itself, your testing gets started. So whenever you're getting the requirements from the customer, let us say your customer has given one requirement. Let's say application must respond immediately. This is one of the requirement. When I say, when you get the requirement from the customer, you will go through the document and understand the application must respond immediately. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this application and then opening this page and then enter here. See, it is taking some time to load. So but you don't know how much time exactly the customer is expecting you to load. That means there is some doubt or ambiguity in the requirement. So when I say ambiguity, or you're not clear on the exact time, so let's say 3 seconds or 4 seconds or 5 seconds, that means the exact information has not given. So for some people, if it is opening in 30 seconds also, they may say that it is loading properly or immediately. So in such cases, without performing any action, by simply reading this, so you're just looking at the requirement document, you read this statement and you are saying that the requirement is not clear, there is ambiguity in the requirement. This type of testing, we call it as unconventional testing. So unconventional testing means what? Without performing any testing, if you validate something, that we call it as unconventional testing. So generally a review of the documents comes under this category, and also code review. When I say code review, your developer might write some code. Let us say the developer has written some code and you just review the code. Looking at that, you will identify whether they have followed proper syntax, proper format or not. So that kind of things comes as part of unconventional testing. So that means where exactly testing comes into picture. So testing comes from the requirements phase itself. It will start from the requirements phase itself, and without performing any activity, if you are doing that kind of testing, that we call it as unconventional testing. So similarly, conventional testing. So when I say conventional testing, it is quite opposite to the above one. That is, you will be performing the testing by performing some actions. If you are checking whether the software is working fine, let us say I'm clicking on login button and see whether the login page is getting launched or not. So that we will be calling it as conventional testing. So now unconventional testing can also be called as static testing, and the other one, conventional testing, can also be called as dynamic testing. So these are very, very important when you are working on any of the projects. So you must understand what is static and what is dynamic. When there is no change at all once you build the system, so that we will be calling it as static testing. And when something is changing on a regular basis, that we call it as dynamic testing. So now you need to understand how the entire functionality will get tested. So to understand that, you need to know the testing methodologies. So first you will be understanding. So now when to start testing, we understood, that is from the requirements phase itself. And also we have discussed on unconventional testing, and we did discuss on conventional testing, and now we need to know what is testing methodology. There are various things. So there are three major things which we will understand as part of testing methodology. So everybody will have their own approach to do any activity. So that process we call it as methodology. So that as part of testing, we'll be calling it as black box testing and white box testing and also gray box testing. What does it mean? So as part of your testing responsibility, as a tester, you are primarily responsible for black box testing. What does it mean? When I say black box testing, in this methodology, you will test the functional part of the application. Functional part of the application. To do this testing, you no need to have any coding knowledge. That means we will call it as structural knowledge. That means if I have to test one website, for example, this website I have to test. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give my ID and I'm going to give my password, and then I'm going to click on this button and I'll give this captcha, and then I'll be testing it. So if I'm able to log in when I provide valid details, that means this is working fine. So to do this, I no need to have any programming knowledge. See, I'm able to log into my website. So if I click on sign out button, so I should come out of the application. That is the requirement. So if you are performing this kind of testing, we call that as black box testing. It will be performed by the testing team who has functional knowledge, and then without having any structural knowledge, if you are performing that testing, we call it as black box testing. And white box testing, purely this will be done by the developers. Those people will be checking the structural part of the application. When I say structural part of the applications, they will be writing some code and they will debug the code step by step, and then they will check whether that is working fine or not. So that process, they will be performing unit testing, module testing, and integration testing to test all these modules. Let us say if your developer is working on this particular application, let's say Citibank login. So once he develop this page, he will try to execute this line and see whether this page is displaying properly or not. So they will be using certain things called IDEs. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Means there are certain tools where they will be using. One of them is Eclipse is one of the example, and then IntelliJ is another example of the tools where they will be using these tools and try to develop the applications. So there they will be checking only the code, whether the code is working fine or not. That type of testing we call it as white box testing. And gray box testing, it is a mix of both black box and white box. That means a person who has a person who has structural knowledge. When I say person, when a developer who has structural knowledge and performs black box testing, that we call it as gray box testing. Similarly, a tester who has functional knowledge and also performs the structural, he has that knowledge as well. That means both the knowledges. So you may get a question, don't you think that a a developer don't have the functional knowledge of the application? That means, so developer have the functional knowledge, but developer is very limited to he is very limited, and he does not have complete knowledge of the application. But as a tester, you will understand the entire architecture of the system. End to end flow of the system also will be known to the testing team. In that case, if the tester has the structural knowledge, he can perform the gray box testing. A developer who has the entire architectural knowledge, and that person, if he performs the functional testing, that is also called gray box testing. So in the testing methodology, you should more focus on black box testing. So black box testing is our regular part of our testing, which we will be performing as part of our testing activities.